Art and architecture of the Post Mauryan period. Artistic forms reflect the culture of a period. In the Post Mauryan period, new trends in art activities came about. There emerged various schools of art like the Gandhara and Mathura art forms, along with those of Sarnath and Amravati. There was also constant interaction in this period with those art forms that flourished beyond the frontiers of the Indian subcontinent. So, in this presentation, we will talk about the important trends of art and architecture in the post Mauryan period, the techniques and styles adopted in the fields of architecture and sculpture, major characteristics and forms of the Gandhara, Mathura, and Amravati schools of art. And finally, we will also deal with the impact of religious and social conditions on art and architecture of this period. So, when we talk about the post Mauryan art, certain general characteristics of art during this period could be outlined. Art activities in this period were mostly related to religions practiced in this period and symbols and units associated with them. The Buddha image, which began to be sculpted in this period, was a departure from earlier representations of him, and making of images for worship became common among other religions as well. The construction of stupas, chaityas, and viharas became popular. The art forms and all of their symbolic representations were not exclusive to any particular religion. Similarly, we find that the artists carved many scenes which they observed in nature along with religious ideas. These are examples of secular art forms. Also, because of regular interactions with other cultures in this period, we find elements of non-Indian art in the artistic creations of the period. Architecture of this period could be broadly divided into two categories: residential structures and religious monuments. Under residential structures or residential monuments, we have very few surviving monuments because in the initial phase, they were built of perishable materials like wood. In fact, we have Milind Panha describing a city with gatehouses, towers, streets, markets, parks, lakes, etc. This description, to an extent, is corroborated by archaeological sources. For this period, we have very insufficient data on temple structures from excavations, but the earliest known temples for this period are the temple at Jhandial Takshila, the Sankarshan temple at Nagari, Rajasthan, the temple at Besnagar, Madhya Pradesh, and a temple at Nagarjunakonda, Andhra Pradesh. We know from Fayan's account of the existence of a tower at Purushpura or Peshawar. It was a grand structure with 13 stories surmounted by an iron column with imposing umbrellas. The construction of this tower has been attributed to Kanishka. Now we come to a discussion of the stupas, the practice of preserving the remains of an important personality below accumulated earth was long in existence. Buddhist art adopted this practice and the structure built over such a site was known as stupa. The worship of stupas led to their ornamentation and a specific type of architecture developed for their construction. We will talk about some prominent stupas. For example, the one at Bodh Gaya in Bihar. 15 kilometers from Gaya is the site where Buddha gained knowledge or Bodhi, and it was here that Ashoka got a Bodhi Manda constructed. We have only the remains of the stone pillars, which illustrate stories from the Buddhist Jatakas. Sanchi is about 14 kilometers from Vidisha and is perhaps the most famous stupa site in India. It has three stupas, all with gateways around them, but the most famous is the Great Stupa, which was originally made of brick in Ashoka's time. The bricks of Ashokan times were replaced by stones, and a Vedika was also constructed around it. The reliefs of Sachi display the following quite prominently: the four great events of the Buddha's life, that is, birth, attainment of knowledge, Dharma Chakra Pravartan, and Mahaparinirvan. Also, representations of birds and camels like lion, elephant, and camel are abundant. Lotus and wishing vines have been prominently and beautifully carved out as ornamentation. There is also a unique representation of forest animals in a manner of worshipping the Buddha. Bharut Stupa, this stupa was located 21 kilometers south of Satna in Madhya Pradesh. The main stupa structure no longer exists. Remains have been preserved in some museums. Some important features of this piece of architecture is that there are gateways or torans, which are imitations in stone of wooden gateways. Other features were railings spreading out from the gateways and posts of these railings having carvings of yakshas, yakshanis, and other divinities who came to be associated with Buddhism. There are representations of Buddhist themes like Jatak stories also. Amravati Stupa, Amravati located 46 kilometers from Guntur. The stupa was built with white marble. Though the stupa itself has completely disappeared, its sculptured panels have been preserved in museums. This magnificent stupa was 42 meters in diameter and its height was about 29 meters. It contained a circular prayer path which was made of stone. Vedika pillars had beautiful carvings of gods and Bodhi tree, stupa, etc. The entrance gate or the toran of the stupa having four lions on the Vedika and lotuses also carved over the pillars. Then we have the Nagarjun Konda stupa, which was built in a style different from that of North India. The importance of this stupa is because of the beautiful panels which illustrate episodes from the life of the Buddha. Takshila. Excavations at Takshila and nearby places have exposed a number of stupas. Sir John Marshall excavated the Chiratopi stupa at Takshila in 1908. Excavations revealed the existence of a stupa at Shaji Ki Dheri near Peshawar, and a stupa built in the Saitha Parthian style was found at Jhandial. Now, rock cut architecture. Both the Buddhists and Jains built chaityas and viharas as places of worship. Now, what is a chaitya and what is a vihara? Chaitya is a shrine cell with a votive stupa place in the center, and viharas were primarily cut out of rocks for the residence of monks. Most of the major chaityas and viharas of this period were built in western and eastern regions. For example, in western India, they are located at Karle, Nasik, Kanheri, etc. Similarly, in eastern India, we have them in Udaygiri or Orissa. Now we come to another important section of art, which is sculpture, sculptural art. In this period, we notice the development of regional or local styles or schools in creations of sculptural art. So we have the Gandhara and Mathura schools developing in the north, while in the south, Amravati was the major early center of art. In general, the art of the post Mauryan period was distinct in character from earlier imperial Mauryan art. Mauryan art has been described as palace art, but the post Mauryan art had a much wider social base, and it was also different in motive, technique, and significance. The art of this period is mostly represented in Buddhist images and relief structures carved on railings and gateways of the stupas, and also on the walls of viharas and chaityas. An important development of this period is modeling of the image of the Buddha both in the Mathura and Gandhara schools. Let us first look into Gandhara School of Art. Gandhara is located in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent on both banks of river Indus, and its art, which was mainly Buddhist, was profoundly influenced by Hellenistic art. But the chief patrons of Gandhara art were the Shakas and Kushanas. Gandhara art can be divided into two schools, early and later. During the early school, which existed during this period, blue grey schist stone was used to make idols, and in the later school, instead of schist stone, mud, lime, and plaster were used to make the idols. Besides idols, we find beautiful carvings on reliefs and bas reliefs, the theme being the life of Buddha and Bodhisattvas. Mathura art. By the 1st century AD, Mathura had become a major center of art, and this school produced a variety of sculptures and other pieces of art for the followers of Buddhist, Jain, and Brahmanical faiths. A significant dimension of Mathura art is that it also produced images of kings and other notables. At the same time, what they were creating from local red stone were uniquely of Mathura. The following were the themes of the sculpture belonging to the Mathura school: Buddha idols, the earliest images of Bodhisattvas and Buddha, were perhaps made at Mathura and sent also to other regions. For example, the Sarnath image of standing Bodhisattvas installed in the period of Kanishka was made at Mathura. We get Buddha images mainly in two postures, standing and sitting. And the two pictures which are shown in this slide, you can see the standing and the sitting postures of Buddha. And some of the general characteristics of the Buddha idols of this age are they are made of white spotted red stone. The right hand is shown raised in Abhay posture, and there is no mark on the forehead. Then you have Jain specimens. Mathura was the sacred center of the Jains, and it has yielded a number of inscriptions which refer to lay followers of Jainism, Jain monks, nuns, etc. Kankali Tila was the main Jain site at Mathura, and it has yielded an overwhelmingly large number of sculptures and various architectural fragments like pillars, capitals, railing posts, etc. Then we have Brahmanical images. Quite a few Brahmanical images have been found in Mathura. The earliest representations are of Shiv, Lakshmi, Surya, and Sankarshan. During the Kushana period, Kartikeya, Vishnu, Saraswati, Kuber, and certain other gods were represented in sculpture. Some of the iconographical features which characterize each deity are present in images of this period. For example, Shiv is represented in the form of Chaturmukh Ling. The Surya is shown riding a chariot. Balram has a heavy turban on his head. Saraswati is seated with a rosary and manuscript in her hands. Durga, in her Mahisha Mardini form, is depicted as the killer of buffalo demon. Kuber was another deity associated with wine, And we have a number of Yaksha and Yakshini images which have been discovered in Mathura. Then there are images of rulers. The Mart village in Mathura yielded big images of Kushana kings, including those of Kanishka. This was done to give the rulers a divine status. Now, after this, we have the Amaravati school of art, which flourished in the eastern Deccan region. It was patronized by Satavahana rulers and later by Ikshvaku rulers, and inspired by Buddhist themes. The main centers of this art were Nagarjun Konda, Amravati, Goli, Ghantashala, etc. The general features of Amravati art are that the figures are carved out of white marble. Though nature is depicted, the central characters are human beings, and kings, princes, and palace figures also prominently figure in sculptural representations. In fact, the Amravati school produced some of the finest art pieces in ancient India. Now, we need to conclude with certain important points. First of all, during this period, both architecture and sculpture reached a high level of maturity, and artists produced requisite pieces of art. It also shows that artisans in this period were no more dependent on royal patronage only, because many merchants, devotees, and other categories of people also patronized them. There was gradual development of art forms and thematic representation, and for example, the earlier creative expressions like rock paintings, terracotta figurines, etc., developed into mature sculptural forms. Stone sculptures were being produced in large numbers in this period, and the symbolic representations ultimately gave way to images, and the images of the Buddha are the best examples of this change. Certain regions developed their own unique art forms, which is illustrated by the schools of Gandhara, Mathura, and Amravati. And though most of the themes in these art forms are religious, we do find nature and man being in a close relationship by the sculptor. The art specimens certainly give us a glimpse into the social and economic life of the period. The bas relief of Mathura, which depicts monks, donors, and attendants, is an example in this regard. Indian activities during this period were also influenced by art forms. And finally, we could say that vigorous interaction with various non Indian and the presence of Hellenistic and Central Asian elements in Indian art of this period shows how enriched Indian culture became through contact with other contemporary cultures. So this was about art and architecture in the post-Mauryan period. Hope you liked the video, and thank you a lot for watching the video.